Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Finding, Berrycreek Heights Series, Book 1 by A.M. Porto, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Victoria, 24 years ago. Look, let me put it this way, with me, you're number one, and there isn't even a number two. Charles Bukowski. Thud, thud, thud. I saw when a football bounced into my backyard. I was playing inside my dollhouse. I peeked through the window to see my new neighbor trying to jump the fence. I came out from the dollhouse and stood where the ball was. It was mid-June and the air was hot, too hot for a summer in Michigan. Hi, my name is Victoria. Is this your ball? I saw when he ducked behind the fence and was now peeking through the fence, eyes fixed on the ball. I took the ball and threw it over the fence. Thanks, I'm Logan. Nice to meet you. He smiled at me. That meant he wanted to be my friend? I wanted to be his friend. He was taller than me and had the bluest eyes and the palest face I had ever seen. His hazelnut hair was short and messy. He smirked awkwardly, but I liked it. He was so slim, but his hands were big. I perused him, but it was his face that struck me. He was like a god or something. I'm having afternoon tea in my dollhouse. You can come and play with me. I don't like tea, he smirked. I giggled. It's not real tea, silly. It's pretend play. Mom? He called his mom, who was standing at the backyard door. She was beautiful. I wanted her to be my mom. My mommy was gone. Zach said she left and was now living in heaven. Hi, sweetheart, she said as she gave him a kiss on the top of his head. She has invited me to play with her. Can I go? His mom peeked through the fence and smiled at me. Sure, I'll walk you over there. She was still peeking and now looked at me. Where's your mom, sweetie pie? She's in heaven. Her eyes widened. I thought I scared her. I didn't like to be scared. Zach scared me sometimes, but I would go to my closet until he stopped yelling. Oh, and your father? I don't know, but Zach is inside. Who is Zach? Logan's mom asked. He's my mom's boyfriend. I live with him. Logan's mom asked me if I had any aunts or a grandmother. I didn't have any. Only my mommy and Zach. I wanted my mommy back, but Zach said she wouldn't come back. Logan's mom took his hand and left the backyard. I shrugged and went back to my dollhouse. 10 minutes later, Logan opened the door of my dollhouse, his mom standing behind him. Your house was unlocked and your dad is sleeping on the couch, he said. My mom thinks he is drunk. Lo, please, his mom squeezed his shoulder. He's not my dad, I said, still sitting down on my pink chair with bunny ears. My mom bought this house and all of my toys before she left. Zach said she took more pills than she was supposed to and didn't wake up. I missed her. She used to play with me here. Zach wouldn't play with me. Whatever, do you want to come to my house and play with my toys? Logan asked, and his mom smiled at me. I can bake cupcakes and order pizza, Logan's mom sang her words. I jumped out of the chair. Yay, I want cupcakes. Let's ask Zach if you can go then. I'm Annie, by the way. Logan's mom said, and I told her that Zach wouldn't care if I went or not. He was always watching TV or sleeping. He drank a lot of the smelly water from the bottle he kept at the coffee table, and when he finished it, he snored. A lot. Sometimes I had to eat cereal all day because he dozed out. He took me to school, but sometimes he forgot to pick me up on time. The other day, Miss Claire, my teacher, had to bring me home. She found Zach sleeping, and I had to spend the night at a stranger's house. Miss Claire said I couldn't stay alone and that the lady who took me to the stranger's home had to speak with Zach before I could come back. I was only 5, soon to be 6 on July 5th, but I knew how to take care of myself. My mommy always said she would teach me the basic stuff in life so I'd know how to survive. Life is beautiful at your age, but it gets nasty with time, V. I will teach you the basic stuff so you know how to survive your demons. Or so she would say. I think she told me that because she knew she was going to be gone one day. She left a few months ago. I'd cried a lot, but I didn't cry anymore, not in front of Zach at least. He'd be very upset if he heard me crying. I never understood why my mommy would think that we had demons living among us, but then I met mine, and everything made sense. I spent the entire day playing with Lo. I asked him a lot of questions, like when his birthday was, and I remember to have repeated it 1 trillion times in my mind so I didn't forget. November 5th, 1 year older than me. He was going to be 7 that year, and I was going to be 6 soon. When the night hit and it was time to go home, I begged Annie to let me stay with them. Their home was warm and cozy, and Annie gave me a bath with warm water, and then she combed my hair. She prepared sandwiches for dinner and played Aladdin on TV until Lo and I fell asleep. She went to Zach's to ask for permission, but he was too drunk to even know she was standing in front of him. The next day, she went early in the morning to tell Zach that I'd spent the night with them. He was awake and oblivious about my absence. When Annie introduced herself and let him know about my sleepover, he didn't even flinch. Truth was, he'd never cared for me. I was a headache he didn't ask for. Months passed by as Annie realized the kind of person Zach really was. I spent most of the days with them. Annie bought me clothes. She took care of me just like my mom had. She took me to school with Logan and went to speak with my teachers all the time. She even took me on vacations with them. Zach didn't care. I would spend some weekends at the Thomases. Jeff, Christy, and Sari, their daughter, were already very close to Annie and Lo, and they would take me along anytime they gathered. Christy was Annie's best friend from college. She was also Jeff's sweetheart. Sari was born a few years after they were married. She was 5 years younger than me, but our bond was unbreakable. I never wanted to go back home. I didn't belong there anymore. I belonged where Lo was, and when Zach realized this, he created those demons I wished I'd never met. Vic, you there? I heard Lo whispering. I'd had a horrible day. Zach had punched me a few times in my back, belly, and arm because I didn't cook dinner. He started hitting me and treating me like garbage when I was 10. He was an acceptable stepfather before. He was even nice to Annie, Nana, and Logan. He let me go on vacations to Grand Haven, where Nana lives, several times during my childhood. One time, Annie planned a trip to Chicago, and he let me go too. But something changed when I turned 10. He kept saying I was the reflection of my mother, and that bothered him. He would say from time to time that he kept me to remind me how his life had gone down the drain because of my mom. He couldn't stand my face, my auburn hair locks, and he definitely hated my delicate voice that resembled hers. In his eyes, I was a mini version of my mom. He was furious because she'd had the audacity to kill herself and leave him behind with me. My mom's suicide was his downfall, and for that, he despised me. Logan shook my knee softly before telling me that he was going to remove my pinky and fuzzy blanket. I was covered from head to toe. It was past 10 o'clock. I was usually already sleeping next to Annie. My mom is worried and sent me over to check on you. I didn't say anything. I was trying to hold my tears back, but the sniffling gave me away. 7 years. That's the time that had passed living under Zach's abuse, negligence, and threats. Hey, Squirrel, I'm going to lift the blanket, okay? He started calling me Squirrel one time we were playing hide and seek, and he couldn't catch me for hours. It was actually funny seeing the quarterback of the football team catching his breath after me. I was on the cross-country team. Running was my area of expertise. Squirrel? I remained silent. Lo did whatever he wanted, whether you agreed or not. He lifted the blanket and looked at me with those bright baby blue eyes, those mesmerizing eyes that always stirred something in my chest. I saw when he clenched his jaw as soon as he saw my face red from crying. He hit you, didn't he? I nodded, unable to hold my tears back anymore. I sat down and hugged him. He comforted me, rubbing my back. He always did. He was so big and tall for a 14-year-old boy. I guess playing football made you big. Let's go. My mom is worried. Let's go home. Lo growled as he removed the blanket and started to fold it before putting it under his arm. I don't want to see him, I said. My voice was breaking. You won't. He's not here. Logan fixed his eyes on the bruise that had already formed on my arm. I stood up, got my school backpack, and started my way downstairs. Most of my stuff was at Lowe's anyway. When we got home, well, Lowe's home, Annie was waiting for us, sitting in one of the rocker chairs on the porch. Vic, honey, I was so worried about you. She rushed to hug me. I'm sorry, Annie. I should have called. Zach punched her again, Mom. Annie's eyes landed on the bruise. Jesus, Victoria! She hid her face with both hands before putting her hair into a ponytail. I'm going to speak with your social worker again tomorrow. She won't do anything, Annie. You know that already. My sweet voice was so low I could barely hear myself. Annie had tried to get custody and become my legal guardian, but the social worker said it was impossible. We'll see. Let's give you something to eat for now and then bedtime. You guys have school tomorrow. We followed her inside to the kitchen, had dinner, and then went to bed. I used to sleep with Annie in her bed. That night, Logan waited for his mom to fall asleep before coming to wake me up. Vic, wake up, Lo whispered in my ear. What? I squeaked, rubbing my eyes. Shh, just come. He took me to his room where he had a tent made of blankets. He had a lantern and 2 pillows inside the tent. I loved it there. It was like being isolated from the world with nobody seeing me, seeing us. We played, turning the lantern on and off, and whoever fell asleep first, the other one shone the lantern straight into their eyes. Then we fell asleep until the next day when Annie woke us up, complaining about the cave. Although I knew she loved it too. Lo built a cave, or at least that's how we used like to call it, for us to spend time together. It was a rusty, abandoned car with just the exterior, nothing inside the vehicle. It was in the car junkyard near the neighborhood. The car was covered with undergrowth, surrounded by tall trees. You could barely notice it was the exterior of a beetle car because the leaves covered it pretty good. During winter, snow would cover it. It was our little nest, isolated from the world. Nobody else knew about it. Logan accommodated it with pillows, blankets, and a small nightstand. The same lantern we used all the time was now sitting on the nightstand. We would keep the stuff in a duffel bag so it wouldn't get wet or dusty, or worse, animals roaming around peeing in it. We spent the evening in the tent on my 15th birthday. That day, I was the happiest person on the planet, yet the saddest one. That day, I had sex for the first time with Logan, and I knew that whatever life had for us, I was going to be his forever. But that day, I also learned that Zach was going to ruin me. I didn't know how or when, but I knew he was going to do something so bad I couldn't save myself from it, and worse, Logan was not going to be around to save me as he always had done. My mom was right. Life was going to be nasty, and demons were going to lurk around me. She taught me mundane stuff like how not to starve, how to use the washing machine so I wore clean clothes, and not to accept anything from strangers, but she'd never taught me how to survive Zach. She thought Zach was a decent stepfather, and at some point he was until he wasn't. Until she killed herself and detonated the evil in him. I hated my mom for having left me alone with Zach. I hated the fact that I had to force myself to grow up faster than I was supposed to do grown-up stuff. I hated Zach so much I'd even thought to put something in his alcohol bottle so he would finally leave me. I never understood why he would keep me if he clearly didn't love me. I never asked to stay with him. I told the useless social worker, who I also hated, that I never wanted to stay with him. I didn't ask for this life. I would have left with Mom if I'd known it was going to be like this.